It's been over 24 hours since my last shower. I'm greasy, covered in gamer gunk, and I'm gonna get serious. There's something I want to talk about. Now, my channel has always just been me making things I have fun making, talking about things I want to talk about, joke about shit I want to joke about. I just kind of treat it like a public diary, kind of like Doug's journal from that cartoon Doug, but instead of having a cool alter ego superhero like Quail Man, my alter ego is a fucking sex toy stuntman. But the point I'm making is, I've always just talked about things that I've had on my mind at the time. Now, you probably don't need to be a psychic with a crystal ball to guess what's been on my mind this week with everything that's happened in the country, with the murder of George Floyd at the hands of police officers, as well as all the protests that have come as a result of that, as well as other things that built up to it. Obviously, that's been what I've been thinking about this week. So let me just start by hitting you with a fucking lightning round here, give you the cliff notes of everything I'm feeling. What happened to George Floyd is a fucking deplorable crime, and all officers involved need to be charged to the fullest extent of the law, as well as the first medical examiner that tried to conceal his cause of death. The first medical examiner's autopsy just seemed to want to cover the officer's asshole by saying very vague things to explain it, like they could have had intoxicants in his system, he could have had a pre-existing medical condition that flared up at the exact moment the officer had his knee on his neck, all kinds of just garbage bullshit. Oh, Mr. Floyd may have looked at a picture of marijuana earlier that day, which caused his body to shut down at the exact moment that the officer's knee was on his neck. In fact, while looking at Mr. Floyd's brain, I was able to see that he had a dream the night before he was arrested where he was smoking weed in that dream, so perhaps that dream may have played a role in his death. Just some straight up garbage from the first medical examiner that I think he needs to be charged with trying to conceal the murder. An independent autopsy was just completed today that confirmed that it was the officer's actions that led to his death via asphyxiation. So I think all of that is terrible, obviously. Now, for the protests, I 100% support the protest. I 100% support the Black Lives Matter movement and the message that they're trying to send and trying to change the systemic racism. I think it's a huge problem that needs to be addressed, and I think the protests and all of that is great. I think the Black Lives Matter movement and all the protests we're seeing this week can really be the start of some very positive change to a system that has been truly terrible for a lot of people for a long time. I mean, shit, people are more afraid of the fucking police officer these days than the boogeyman. If you want to scare your children, you don't tell them that the boogeyman's coming if they don't eat their vegetables. You tell them that they're going to call the police. That's 10 times as fucking scary for people these days. And that's not right. The people that are supposed to protect and serve are the people that people are most fearful of. That's just absolutely terrible. So I 100% stand by the movement, and I stand by everyone out there protesting, and I 100% agree that things need to change. This absolutely was a necessity. This needed to happen. Police brutality has gone way too fucking far for way too fucking long, and it's about time that people come together and say enough is enough. Do I think every single cop in the country is a piece of shit? Absolutely not. There are good cops, but there's a fucking ton of bad cops, as these protests are showing us. These cops are going straight up barbaric in some situations, just fucking pepper spraying people in drive-bys, going through doing like 360 behind the back pepper spray out of their fucking police window. They're macing children, shooting people in the eyes that aren't even protesting with rubber bullets. That fucking 2 people have lost their eyes from what I've seen just from being around protests. There was a man smoking a cigarette nearby who got shot for no reason. Like, just crazy shit from the police that is showing there is a ton of bad police officers, which we all knew. But there are good ones too, so I don't say every single cop is bad. I don't believe that, not at all. But there is a lot of bad ones, and a lot of things need to change when it comes to police. There needs to be reform. Now, I'm sure many of you have realized by now, but I'm not a politically charged guy. I don't fucking do political content because A, I think, political content is boring, and B, I just don't like where politics is these days. It's mainly like football teams where you choose a team to root for and then ignore bad things on that side just to say a huge supporter of that team because you're a super fan of that team and you just ignore anything bad. And I don't agree with that. For me personally, I have a set of ideals and beliefs and I support things that go in line with that, and I don't like things that go against it, which is typically why on an issue, I talk about bad things on both sides of the issue, which is apparently a bad thing that people hate these days. They call it centrists on Twitter, I think. And it's just constantly shit on. That shit is fucking blasted harder than a fleshlight. Like, if you're a centrist or you talk about issues on two sides, you are immediately discredited as a human being, which I don't really understand. Why would you encourage people to be like a brainwashed zombie to go to one side or the other and then ignore bad things and only talk about bad things against the other side? Like, why the fuck would you want that? Just to be constantly swallowing shit without ever questioning it? I think it's important to talk about and be reasonable about both things, everything around a topic, as opposed to just what goes in line with what team you chose to support, you know what I mean? Now, all of this to say that what's happening happening right now, I think goes well above politics. This is not some political only issue. This is something that is just so beyond politics and so important, which is why I wanted to talk about it. Now, typically with things I support, I keep it to myself. I keep that shit private, whether it be financial donations to certain causes or anything like that, charities, people, or just things I support in general. I keep that to myself because I don't want to publicize it and accidentally, just have someone blindly follow my set of ideals. I want people to come to their own conclusions and make their own decisions on what's important to them. However, in this case, I wanted to talk about this and show my support because for this cause, I think it's extremely important that everyone knows that there's so many people backing this message and this movement because it is a super important thing that absolutely needs to be addressed and absolutely needs to have action taken on it. There needs to be police reform. There needs to be a lot of changes because there is a lot of fucking problems. Now, this next thing is actually something I posted about on Twitter. Looting. I don't think looting is a good thing. Apparently that's a controversial thing to say right now, but yeah, I think looting is bad. I don't know why people are making excuses for the looting. It's not even the protesters that are looting. It's people that are hijacking the movement to just cause destruction and steal things for their own personal gain. There's literally discords of people that are coordinating to get U-Hauls together, go to where protests are happening, and just robbing nearby stores. They don't care about George Floyd, and they don't care about the movement or the message. They're just there to steal shit and cause destruction, and I don't know why people on Twitter are defending that. Destroying and looting these small family-owned businesses are doing nothing to help voices be heard. Yes, I know AutoZone, Target, and all that has been looted and burnt down and shit. Those are big multi-billion-dollar companies. I get that. But it's not like they're hurt from it. What you've hurt is the people that were employed by those businesses. And yes, they can rebuild. I know everyone's saying, items can be replaced, lives can't. That's true. But they also shouldn't even come to that where items need to be replaced because it's not helping. A lot of small businesses, mostly small businesses from what I've seen, are the ones that are getting destroyed and looted. Of course, there's the most popular example of the man who was opening his bar that was absolutely demolished, but luckily people did donate to his GoFundMe to rebuild it, but who knows when he can actually rebuild that and get his dream back off the ground. That's still going to take a lot of time, even with that financial support. And I don't see why targeting his bar helped anything. It just hurt him. It's just hurting the community. In my city specifically, there was this great Vietnamese restaurant that I'd eaten at multiple times called Saigon Bay Vietnamese Restaurant. It was owned and operated by a family of 4 for the last 4 years, and during a Tampa looting session, it was burnt down and destroyed, as well as a few other buildings nearby. And I just have to ask why. Like, what the fuck did that accomplish? It's not like by burning that down, anything was solved. It's not like the people in power are going to be like, holy shit, we were ignoring this problem, but now that they've targeted this Vietnamese restaurant and destroyed it, now we have to listen. Fucking love that Vietnamese restaurant. Okay, now it's time to get serious. It didn't do anything. What happened is it just ruined that entire family's lives that they built up over the course of 4 years that they put everything into. Again, I know this wasn't the protesters that did this, by the way. I want to make that clear. I'm well aware it's not real protesters doing this. It's very evil people that are taking advantage of this situation to cause chaos and loot shit and burn shit and just be assholes. I get that. But what it's done, all of these people doing this, are turning the community against the protests because now they're afraid. They're afraid of the protests. If they hear protests nearby and they own a small business, they're afraid of what might happen to their business nearby. So it's just a bad thing for the entire protest as a whole to go on Twitter and encourage the looting and make it sound like it's just something that's supposed to be acceptable. I just don't agree with that because everything that the protest is doing is fucking great, but then the people that are hijacking it and don't even fucking care are taking advantage of it and still getting defended on Twitter, and I don't like that at all. Now, I'm not saying this is an absolute. Not everyone is defending looting, of course. Like, there's a lot of protesters out there actively trying to stop it, putting themselves in front of looters in a building or just outright discouraging it or making sure people know that this is not acceptable, this is not what the protest is about, and that's great. I'm just saying it is still something that is getting defended from time to time on Twitter that I just disagree with, but I want to again reiterate, truly hope that there can be a good positive change and outcome from all of this, and my heart goes out to everyone affected and everyone involved, wishing the absolute best from this situation. Hopefully by the end of everything here, we'll be a lot closer as a nation and won't be as divided. And yeah, that's really about it. So yeah.